Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Select Committee. I want to talk quickly about several things and add to what I had written. We need to look at the purpose of the legislation again. I think it needs to acknowledge the fact that there needs to be an agreed handover time for central government to local government. Now, Christchurch City Council and the government are equal partners paying for Regenerate Christchurch and should have equal say. Now, I'm aware that there'll be an argument that the government's put a huge amount of money in, and we're extremely grateful for that, and we expect to pay our bit when another city experiences this. However, we're getting to the next stage, and it's really important. I'm aware that 6 of you here are under Minister Brownlee's orders. We know what that's like. We've had that for 5 years.
With respect, that's an entirely inappropriate comment, and I'd ask you to withdraw it.
I withdraw. I don't.
Thank you.
But that's been our experience as well. When we talk about regeneration, it's really important that the government and this city look at becoming a 21st century city, and it will only occur when we legislate for authentic and active engagement with communities. And at this stage, I don't think that's possible in this bill. I'll give you an example. I'm on a committee that Mayor Leanne Dalzell has put together to look at the council's budget. There are 5 of us on that committee, including myself, and a number of you will know Roger Bridge, who sits there with me. We are looking at reduction of hundreds of millions of dollars off the council budget, and we're doing it by linking into our networks and our knowledge, and we're doing that as volunteers, and I'm sure that you could actually use that example in every single challenge of the city. And when I was aware, Mr. Chairman, afterwards that somebody contacted me who was watching this on live stream about Tamaki and your experience in Tamaki. I had no idea about the background to it. What we're basically saying about Tamaki is that there's some very good wording there and some commitment to engagement, and that's what we think is missing here. Now, one of the really important things is that this transition has to, if you pick up it's transitioning from central government to local government to engagement with the local community, and I didn't know about the council's submission till before. I think it's really important that you look at the Local Government Act and look at how this can be linked into the Local Government Act. And I think it needs to be a seamless transition from this bill into the Local Government Act. I worked with it for a number of years, and I know it quite well. And also under the Local Government Act, there are no powers of veto. So as Mayor, I actually was the first amongst equals. And I think it's really important in any decision-making process that it's transparent and equal. And that's really important when you're engaging properly with your community. And I feel very strongly of limiting Crown Co to just the CBD anchor projects only. This is where the government has a significant investment. This is where a number of us have tried to get financial information on those projects, and they're redacted, which seems to be a whole word invented recently. And so we can't actually look at it. There is no transparency. And all sorts of arguments like commercially sensitive and things like that. But really, as a city, we could add value to all of those projects given an opportunity. And so, thank you for listening to my submission.
Thank you, Todd, and then David.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Firstly, you gave a good example before of you assisting with others on the Finance Committee, I think it was. Is that engagement, is that prescribed anywhere under the Local Government Act?
No, it was. It's approved by council, passed through council process.
So I guess my point is that you don't need prescriptive legislation to create mechanisms for people to feel that they can come forward and have an idea, both as an individual and a community. And as I look at this bill, I don't see where the community is constrained from individual or community or collective view and feeding it forward through to the various partners involved in this bill, be it strategic partners or the council themselves. Your comment on that?
Under the Local Government Act, there's no power of veto. I don't think there should be one. Yes, people can get engaged, but our experience in the last 5 years has been it doesn't go far.
Look, as you look forward, I appreciate that's your view, but obviously we've heard a lot of people who have a number of ideas, some of them sound pretty exciting. As I look at this bill with fresh eyes, I don't see why and how they are constrained from holding that view. In fact, it feels like there's quite a momentum out there around people being able to put forward views on how to use the red zone land and the like. And one would assume that those who sit around the Regeneration board will be able to reflect on that, and no doubt that'll be part of their deliberation.
I think, to me, the offensive piece is the power of veto. And I think that it is really important that local government and central government and the local community should be seen as equals, and I don't think that's written into this bill. And our experience as a city, and I know the experience of the council, has been under the ChCh Act, they are not equal. Now, I'm not saying the council's celestial virgins either. I think they need some significant viewing of how they go about things, and that's the committee that group of us are on. That's what we're doing.
David.
Yeah, thank you. You concede that where the government is spending a lot of the government's money, they should be able to control how their money is spent, and you think that that's effectively limited to the big projects through CrownCo.
Yep.
There seems to be from questions of the committee to members, a theme coming through from government members of the committee, and this is no criticism of them, that same need for control permeates the Regenerate ChCh plans as well. Do you have a view as to whether that's necessary?
No, I don't. And look, we have a business in the middle of the city. And if you stand on the top floor of our business and look around at the empty land, you can see that, in fact, public servants should never, ever have anything to do with property development. And that is my observation, that, in fact, the property people that are engaged in this are actually working as servants to public servants. And that model is wrong. And so I think that, as Penny and Bruce and others have said, we've got to have transparent processes that engage actively in the community. Sometimes that's slower, but regularly my experience has been it's cheaper. Because I've been involved in a number of major projects where when we engaged with the local community, they said, look, you're doing it wrong. And we changed how we were doing it. But
that's an engagement point,
yep.
And I've got that.
Yep.
But in terms of the issue as to whether there should be ministerial veto powers in respect of the Regenerate ChCh part of this bill, I might be missing something, but I don't understand the Crown imperative based on cost to have a right of veto in there. Do you?
No, that's equal. Partners are putting in equal amounts, and the council may increase its share and be putting in more than central government afterwards. So in fact, leaving the minister's power of veto in is offensive.
So Regenerate ChCh plans can't spend the government's money anyway, can they?
No.
So why do they need a power of veto?
I'll put it this way, if I were mayor, I'd be jumping up and down, but I'm not, so I'm jumping up and down as a citizen.
We're running very short of time, Eugenie, and then not very
this legislation draws heavily on the ChCh Act. If instead it used its model as the Local Government Act, would appeal rights to the Environment Court and the normal RMA processes provide that check and the transparency for the planning process instead of the ministerial veto?
Yes, and the beauty of appeal rights, look, I've been involved in decisions that have been overturned by higher courts, and that improved them. And I think that's the beauty of appeals. And one of the things that is quite complicated for many individuals is being able to afford that appeal, but a community can.
Thanks.
No.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Gary. I just want to come to your legislate for authentic and active engagement, and you use again the Tamaki development as an example. Do you think that in the legislation, because when we look at the cultural input of it, we're just talking about Ngaitahu. Now, I know that you're qualified enough with your relationship with the iwi. Do you think that it should be wider to actually include sort of more ethnicity, like Pacifica and all that, like they do with the Tamaki development?
Yeah, that's the bit that really appealed to me, because I work in a whole lot of cultural communities in Christchurch, and in fact Mark Solomon and I put together the Intercultural Assembly, and that made some major decisions for the city. We had that United Nations we could call on, and it's really important to have that. I think it's important to have tangata whenua, but it's also important to acknowledge the other ethnicities that are here, that add huge Chinese community.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Gary, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your submission. Useful as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.